Shadows of the Past Early Life of Arya. Episode 2, The Cruel Reality. The first light of dawn filtered through the thin curtains of Arya's small attic bedroom, signaling the beginning of another long day. She stretched and sighed, pulling herself from the warmth of her bed to face the chores that awaited her. Downstairs, she could already hear her stepsisters, Beatrice and Cecilia, chattering and laughing. Their laughter was never a sound of joy for Arya. It was always laced with malice and mockery. Arya descended the creaky staircase to the kitchen, where her stepmother Margaret, an imposing figure with sharp features and a perpetual scowl, stood with her arms crossed. "You're late," Margaret snapped, her voice cold and devoid of any maternal warmth. "I'm sorry, No excuses," Margaret interrupted. "There are dishes to wash, floors to scrub, and breakfast to prepare. Move quickly." Arya nodded meekly and set to work, her stepsister's taunts starting almost immediately. "Look at her, Beatrice," Cecilia said with a sneer. "She's like a little mouse, scurrying around." "More like a rat," Beatrice added, laughing. "A dirty little rat." Arya kept her head down, focusing on her tasks. She had learned long ago that responding only made things worse. As she scrubbed the kitchen floor, the scent of the sizzling bacon and freshly baked bread filled the air, making her stomach growl. She knew, however, that she would only get the scraps once her stepfamily had finished. "Arya, this coffee is too bitter," Beatrice shrieked, throwing her cup onto the floor where it shattered. "Make another pot, now!" "And my eggs are overcooked," Cecilia added, pushing her plate away. "Are you trying to ruin our breakfast?" Arya's cheeks burned with humiliation, but she quickly cleaned up the mess and started over. Her mind often drifted to happier times when the kitchen had been a place of laughter and love, filled with the comforting presence of her mother. Margaret entered the kitchen, her eyes narrowing as she surveyed the scene. "Arya, come here," she demanded. Arya hurried over, dread pooling in her stomach. Margaret held up a cloth napkin with a small stain on it. "Explain this," she demanded. I'm sorry, it must have happened while I was careless," Margaret barked. "You've been nothing but a burden since the day you arrived. For this infraction, you'll scrub the entire house, top to bottom. And no dinner for you tonight." Arya bit back her tears and nodded, knowing it was futile to protest. She spent the rest of the morning cleaning every inch of the house, while her stepsisters lounged and Margaret went about her day, oblivious to Arya's hard work and suffering. It was late afternoon by the time Arya finished, her body aching and her stomach growling. She retreated to the attic, her sanctuary, and sat on the edge of her bed, trying to find a moment of peace. Her thoughts drifted to her mother, whose warmth and kindness felt like a distant dream. Arya's fingers traced the edge of the wooden floorboards beneath her bed, a habit she had developed over the years. One day, not long after Margaret and her daughters had moved in, she had discovered a loose board. Curiosity piqued, she pried it open and found a hidden space below. Inside were mementos of her mother, a delicate locket with a picture of them both, a few letters, and her mother's favorite book of poetry. This secret cache became her most treasured possession, a tangible link to the love and happiness she once knew. Today, seeking solace, she reached for the locket and held it close, its cool metal bringing a small measure of comfort. She opened one of the letters, her mother's elegant handwriting, filling her with a bittersweet sense of loss and love. "Dearest Arya, remember that no matter how dark the days may seem, you have a light within you that can never be extinguished. You are stronger than you know, and my love for you is eternal, Mother." Tears welled in Arya's eyes as she read the words. Her mother's faith in her gave her strength, even in the face of her current hardships. Just then, a loud banging on the attic door shattered her moment of peace. "Arya, get down here this instant." Margaret's voice was sharp and unyielding. Arya quickly hid her treasures and hurried downstairs, where Margaret stood with a scowl. The dinner guests will be here soon, and the dining room is still a mess. Clean it up and make sure everything is perfect. If anything goes wrong tonight, you will regret it. Yes, Margaret, Arya said softly and set to work once more. As she cleaned and prepared for the evening, her stepsisters continued to mock her. Make sure the silverware is spotless, or Mother will have your head, Beatrice said with a cruel grin. Yes, and don't forget to stay out of sight when the guests arrive. We wouldn't want them to see our little housemaid, would we? Cecilia added. Arya remained silent, focusing on her tasks. Despite their cruelty, she found a small measure of satisfaction in doing her work well. A silent defiance against their attempts to break her spirit. The evening wore on, with Margaret hosting her guests in the grand dining room. A stark contrast to the small, dim kitchen where Arya toiled. As the night grew late, Arya finally retreated to the attic, her body exhausted but her spirit unbroken. She sat on her bed and pulled out her mother's book of poetry, reading by the light of a small candle. The words transported her to another world, one where kindness and love prevailed over cruelty and hardship. It was in these moments that Arya felt closest to her mother. As if her spirit were right there beside her, offering comfort and encouragement. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Each one blending into the next with the same routine of chores and taunts. But Arya held on to her mother's memory, drawing strength from the hidden treasures in the attic. And the whispered words of encouragement that echoed in her heart. One crisp autumn evening, after an especially grueling day, Arya discovered a small, dusty box hidden deeper within the attic. Inside were more of her mother's belongings, a beautiful silk scarf, a small vial of her favorite perfume, and a journal. Arya opened the journal, its pages filled with her mother's thoughts, dreams, and love for her daughter. Reading through the journal, Arya felt her mother's presence more strongly than ever. She learned about her mother's hopes for her, her strength in the face of adversity, and her unwavering love. These words became a lifeline for Arya, a reminder that she was not alone and that she possessed a resilience that her stepfamily could never take away. Winter came, bringing with it a chill that seeped through the thin walls of the attic. Arya shivered under her blankets, but the thought of her mother's warmth kept her heart from freezing. She continued her daily routine, finding small moments of joy and solace in her hidden treasures. One day, while cleaning the parlor, Arya overheard a conversation between Margaret and a wealthy suitor visiting for Beatrice. Your daughter is lovely, the suitor said, though his tone lacked genuine affection. Yes, she will make a fine match, Margaret replied, her eyes gleaming with ambition. And with the right dowry, she will be even more appealing. Arya's heart sank at the realization that Margaret saw her daughters as mere commodities to be traded for wealth and status. It made her even more determined to hold on to her mother's teachings of love and kindness, values that were absent in her current home. As spring approached, bringing new life and hope, Arya continued to find strength in her hidden sanctuary. The attic had become more than just a place to store her mother's mementos. It was a symbol of her resilience and a testament to the unbreakable bond she shared with her mother. One bright morning, while dusting the parlor, Arya found a small, intricately carved wooden box tucked away on a high shelf. Curious, she opened it to find a letter addressed to her, written in her mother's familiar hand. My dearest Arya, if you are reading this, it means you have found my secret box. Inside, you will find a key. This key opens a trunk hidden beneath the floorboards in the attic. The trunk contains treasures from my past, and more importantly, the means for you to secure your future. I always knew you were destined for greatness, my sweet Arya. Remember, you are never alone. I am always with you in spirit. All my love, forever and always. Mother. Tears streamed down Arya's face as she held the key in her trembling hand. With renewed determination, she raced to the attic and located the hidden trunk. Inside, she found beautiful jewelry, letters of inheritance, and documents proving her rightful ownership of the estate that Margaret had claimed as her own. Arya realized that she now held the power to change her fate. With her mother's words echoing in her heart, she confronted Margaret, presenting the documents and demanding justice. Margaret's face turned pale, her usual confidence shattered. Arya's stepsisters, stunned into silence, watched as their mother's facade crumbled. With the help of the local authorities, Arya reclaimed her home and her rightful place as the lady of the estate. Margaret and her daughters were forced to leave, their reign of cruelty ending at last. As Arya stood in the now peaceful and welcoming home, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had not only survived but had also triumphed over the hardships imposed upon her. Her mother's love and guidance had been her guiding light, leading her to a future where she could live with dignity and kindness. Arya continued to honor her mother's memory, filling the house with love, warmth, and laughter. The attic remained her sanctuary, a place where she could always feel her mother's presence. And though the road had been long and filled with challenges, Arya emerged stronger, embodying the resilience and grace her mother had always known she possessed.